Run, Ilara! Don't look back! Maddox's voice cut through the howling desert wind as he ignited his energy blade, its blue light casting eerie shadows across the sand dunes. Behind them, the massive silhouette of a warship darkened the twin moons, searchlights sweeping the wasteland. The small alien child clutched her glowing pendant, her silvery skin reflecting the weapon's azure glow as she looked up at her protector with wide, frightened eyes. Maddox knelt beside her, his weathered face softening despite the danger closing in. Remember what I taught you? Find the rocks that look like fingers reaching for the sky. I'll be right behind you. Ilara nodded, her luminescent white hair floating as if suspended in water. She reached out one small hand, touching the scarred side of Maddox's face with unexpected tenderness before turning to run toward the canyon ridge. 15 days earlier, Maddox had been scavenging the ruins of an outpost settlement when he'd found her, the sole survivor of what appeared to be a methodical massacre. Bodies of researchers and indigenous nomads lay scattered among smoking debris. Only this child remained, huddled beneath a collapsed communications array, her markings pulsing with a soft light that seemed to respond to the ancient technology around her. He hadn't meant to become her protector. Deserters from the Galactic Armada didn't take on dependents, especially not alien children who attracted the attention of military cruisers. But when the first scout ship had appeared, and he'd seen how the instruments in his own vessel responded to her presence, he understood why someone would slaughter an entire settlement to find her. Now, watching her small form disappear into the darkness, Maddox turned to face the approaching enemy. 3 hoverbikes crested the nearest dune, their riders wearing the unmistakable armor of Vex's elite hunters. Just like old times, eh, Varen? The lead rider's voice crackled through an external speaker as he dismounted, drawing a weapon that hummed with unstable energy. Except now, you're protecting the enemy instead of eliminating them. Maddox adjusted his grip on his energy blade. The only enemy I see is the one who massacres researchers to get to a child, Drayson. The hunter laughed. A child? Is that what you think she is? He gestured to his companions to circle around. Commander Vex was right about you going soft. That child is the key to weapons that wiped out civilizations. The markings on her skin are a genetic key. Maddox didn't wait for further explanation. He lunged forward, his blade cutting through the air with practiced precision. The first hunter fell before he could fire. The second caught Maddox's armored shoulder with a glancing shot that sent pain lancing down his arm. The third managed to activate a distress beacon before Maddox's blade found its mark. Breathing heavily, he retrieved the beacon and crushed it beneath his boot. Too late. The Harbinger would have their location now. He needed to find Ilara and get to the drifter before Vex deployed ground troops. He found her where he'd instructed, small hands pressed against an unremarkable rock face. As he approached, her markings began to glow brighter, and to his astonishment, the stone before her shifted, revealing a passageway that sensors would never detect. You knew this was here? He asked, crouching beside her. Ilara nodded, taking his hand. It remembers me, she said simply, her voice musical and strange. It was only the 3rd time he'd heard her speak since finding her. The passage led them deep beneath the surface, where the temperature dropped and the air tasted of minerals and something older. Something that reminded Maddox of the ancient temples his unit had been ordered to destroy on Kepler 9. The walls were covered with intricate patterns that matched the markings on Ilara's skin, and they glowed faintly as she passed. What is this place? Maddox whispered, more to himself than to the child. Home, she replied, leading him forward with surprising confidence. Not my home, their home, the ones who made me. The passage opened into a vast chamber where a small ship, unlike any design Maddox had encountered, rested on a platform. Its surface was smooth, with the same patterns that adorned Ilara's skin etched into its hull. "We need to keep moving," Maddox said, checking the ammunition in his sidearm. "The drifter is our best chance." Ilara shook her head. "He's coming. The metal man. He knows I'm here now." As if summoned by her words, a rumbling shook the chamber. Dust and small stones rained from the ceiling. They had been found. "We need to go. Now!" Maddox lifted Ilara onto his shoulders, her small hands gripping his helmet for balance as he ran back toward the passage. They emerged into the harsh sunlight of early morning to find the massive form of the Harbinger hovering above the desert, its shadow turning the sand cold beneath their feet. A smaller craft detached from the warship's underside, descending rapidly toward their position. Maddox recognized the sleek, predatory lines of a command shuttle. Vex was coming personally. "Hold tight," he told Ilara, breaking into a run toward the canyon where he'd hidden the drifter. The child's weight was nothing to his enhanced physiology, and he covered ground quickly, but the shuttle was faster. It roared overhead, landing directly in their path. The ramp descended, and Commander Vex emerged, flanked by 4 guards. Half of his face was mechanical, a reminder of their last encounter years ago. "Maddox Varen," Vex called, his organic eye narrowing while his mechanical one glowed red. "The deserter becomes a kidnapper. How far you've fallen." Maddox set Ilara down behind him, keeping his body between her and Vex. "I found her surrounded by people your troops slaughtered. I'd say you're the one who's fallen, Vex." The commander's mechanical faceplates shifted in what might have been a smile. "Those deaths were regrettable, but necessary. The child is not what you think. She's a weapon, the last of her kind, engineered by the ancients to interface with their technology." He gestured to the ruins behind them. "Technology that includes planet killers, Varen. Weapons that could end this war." "There's always another war with you," Maddox replied, his hand moving to his energy blade. "Another enemy, another weapon. She's a child." "She's a key," Vex snapped. "A genetic key to the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. The markings on her skin are a code, one that responds only to her biometric signature. With her, we can activate the ancient vessel we've recovered in orbit. One ship capable of destroying entire fleets." Maddox felt Ilara's small hand slip into his. "Is that why you massacred those researchers? To use her to kill more people?" "To end the rebellion permanently," Vex corrected. "To bring peace through decisive victory." "I've seen your version of peace," Maddox said, remembering planets reduced to ash under that same justification. He squeezed Ilara's hand. "Run when I tell you. Straight for the rocks." The child nodded almost imperceptibly. Maddox ignited his blade in one fluid motion and charged. "Run!" The guards opened fire, but Maddox moved with the enhanced speed of a veteran Armada soldier, his blade deflecting shots as he cut through their line. He felt a searing pain as one blast caught him in the side, but adrenaline pushed him forward. Vex drew his own weapon, a prototype pulse pistol that fired bursts of concentrated energy. "You're throwing your life away for nothing," Vex shouted as Maddox closed the distance between them. "She'll die out here without proper containment. Her biology isn't designed for this environment." Their weapons clashed, energy crackling against energy. Maddox used his greater weight to drive Vex back toward the shuttle. "She survived 2 weeks with me. Seems like your intelligence is flawed." Vex's mechanical eye whirred as it adjusted focus. 2 weeks? Impossible. Her kind can't. Understanding dawned on his organic features. She's evolving, adapting. That makes her even more valuable. A blast from Vex's weapon caught Maddox in the shoulder, sending him stumbling backward. Pain lanced through his body as the energy disrupted his armor's systems. He fell to one knee, using his blade to keep himself upright. Vex approached cautiously. "You could have been one of our greatest commanders, Varen. Instead, you'll die in this wasteland. Forgotten." "Not forgotten," came a small voice. Both men turned to see Alara standing atop a nearby dune, her markings glowing so brightly they were visible even in the harsh sunlight. The ground beneath them began to tremble. "Alara, run!" Maddox shouted. But the child remained where she was, her hands outstretched toward the ancient ruins. The earth split open as massive structures began to rise from beneath the sand. Towers and archways of the same material as the chamber they'd discovered, all bearing the same intricate patterns as Alara's markings. The air filled with the sound of grinding stone and humming energy. Vex stared in awe. By the stars, a whole city. The intelligence said nothing about this. He turned to his remaining guards. "Take the child, now!" Maddox forced himself to his feet, ignoring the pain radiating from his wounds. He reached Alara just as the first guard did, driving his blade through the man's chest before gathering the child in his arms. "I told you to run," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion. Alara touched his face again. "You were hurt? I couldn't leave you." The ground continued to shift as more of the ancient city emerged from its sandy grave. Vex and his remaining guards were caught off balance, struggling to maintain their footing on the moving terrain. The commander's face contorted with rage. "This changes nothing, Varen. The Harbinger can level this entire region from orbit." As if in response to his threat, the patterns on the emerging structures began to pulse with energy. A shimmering field expanded outward from the central tower, enveloping Maddox and Alara before spreading to cover the entire area. Above them, the Harbinger fired its main cannons. But the energy blasts dissipated harmlessly against the shield. Maddox looked down at Alara in amazement. "You're doing this?" She shook her head. "Not me. Them. The ones who came before. They left this for when I returned." She pointed to a pathway that had formed leading toward the heart of the now exposed city. "We need to go there." Maddox nodded, setting her on his shoulders once more. Her small hands held his helmet for balance as they made their way along the path, leaving Vex screaming impotent threats behind them. The central tower opened at their approach, revealing a chamber similar to the one they'd found earlier, but vastly larger. Another ship waited inside. This one big enough for actual travel, rather than just short-range flight. "Is this what Vex is after?" Maddox asked, setting Alara down gently. "No," she replied, approaching the vessel. "What he found is a destroyer. This is a seeker." She placed her hand against the hull, and patterns of light spread from her touch. "It finds others like me. There are more of your kind. Hidden, scattered, waiting." The ship's entry ramp lowered in response to her touch. "We were made to protect, not destroy. The ancients created us to safeguard life, not end it." Maddox felt the weight of her words. "And Vex wants to use you to power a weapon." She nodded solemnly. "If he forces me to activate the destroyer, it will respond to my distress. It will target what threatens me." An entire planet, Maddox realized. Or more. A violent explosion shook the chamber. The shield protecting them flickered momentarily. "They're breaking through," Maddox said, checking his weapons. "The Harbinger must have called for reinforcements." Alara took his hand, leading him toward the ship. "We need to leave. Find the others before he does." Maddox hesitated. "Alara, I'm a deserter. A criminal to half the galaxy. I can't—" You protected me, she interrupted, her large eyes fixed on his face. No one else did. Just you. Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. The shield was failing. Maddox made his decision. All right, let's find your people. Inside, the ship was both alien and somehow familiar, with controls that responded to Alara's presence and, surprisingly, to Maddox's touch as well. As they lifted off, the ancient city began to sink back beneath the sand, its purpose fulfilled. The Harbinger loomed above them, its weapon systems targeting their small vessel. But before it could fire, the ship responded to Alara's touch, accelerating with impossible speed past the warship and into the upper atmosphere. From the safety of space, Maddox watched the desert planet grow smaller behind them. His wounds ached, but for the first time in years, he felt something like hope. Where to now? He asked, looking down at the child who had changed everything. Alara climbed onto his lap, her small form fitting perfectly against his armored chest. She pointed toward a cluster of stars barely visible in the distance. Home, she said simply, her markings glowing softly in the dim light of the ship. Our home. Maddox set the course, leaving behind the wasteland, the armada, and the guilt that had driven him for so long. Whatever waited among those distant stars, they would face it together. The soldier and the child, protector and protected, an unlikely family forged in the harshest of circumstances. As the ship accelerated to light speed, Alara fell asleep in his arms, her small face peaceful despite all they had endured. Maddox held her carefully, his battle-worn hands gentle around her tiny form. Sleep well, little one, he whispered. I'll keep you safe. I promise. And for the first time since he deserted the armada, Maddox Varon knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be.